the Midianites have been coming into the camps of Israel and stealing all of their food, and this has just been going on for months and years, and they're really tired of it. And they begin to complain like they usually do. And then there was a young man whose name was Gideon. And Gideon was working in his cornfield down in a hole. He'd sort of buried it in the ground. And the angel came. Now, the angel is actually the Lord, but Gideon doesn't realize that right at first. And the angel says, "Gideon, mighty warrior." He doesn't look much like a mighty warrior down there in the pit digging his corn. And the angel says, "God has a job for you to do that will set the Israelites free from the Midianites." And Gideon says, "Me? I think you've made a mistake here. I'm not a mighty warrior, and I'm just a farmer. And no. God is going to use you to do some mighty things." Well, how in the world am I going to know that's true? Well, what do you want God to do? Well, I know. I've got a rug that's made out of sheep's wool. It's a big fleece, and I'm going to set it out in front of my tent. And in the morning, if there's dew all around the fleece, no, let's do it the other way. Let's have the fleece wet and the ground dry. And Gideon went to bed that night, and he thought he was doing fine. No way is this going to make a problem. And so he got up the next morning, ran out to see, stuck his finger in this fleece, and it was soaking wet. He felt the ground. It was dry. He picked up the fleece, and he wrung out a whole bowl full of water. Well, the angel said, "Are you ready now?" And Gideon said, "Well, could we do it just once more? And this time, let's make the fleece dry and the ground wet, okay? Just one more time. It'll make me feel a little better." So the angel said, "Okay, that's fine." Well, Gideon went to bed that night, and he thought, "Got it made. No way the dew can pick a spot and not fall on it." When he got up the next morning, ran outside of his tent, felt the fleece, it was dry as a bone. "Okay," he said, "I guess God really wants me to do this." So now God said, "Gideon, go blow the trumpet and get a whole army of men to come to go with you to fight the Midianites." So Gideon blew the trumpet, and the Israelites all knew when the trumpet was blown that they had all come together. And so they all came together, and Gideon looked, and there were, oh my goodness, when they counted, there were 33,000 men. And Gideon's thinking, "Hey, that's all right. I've got a big army here." And God said, "Hey, Gideon, come here. I need to talk to you." "Yes, sir." "Well, you know, a lot of those men," it's a big army, isn't it, God? I mean, we're doing really good, 33,000. Yeah, now just hold it, Gideon. It's a big army, but a lot of those men are scared to death to fight. And what I want you to do is to get up on the hill and tell all of them that are scared that they can go home with the women. And Gideon said, "You really think that's a good idea, God?" "Gideon, go do it." Well, Gideon's not feeling too good now, and he gets up and tells the army, "Now, okay, everybody who's scared, you can go on home with the women and children," and he's afraid to look. And when he looks, 2/3 of them left. He only has 10,000 men left to fight. Well, you know, that's not much of an army when it says that the Midianites look like the sands of the sea. And he says, "God, we only have 10,000 left." And God said, "I know, Gideon. And the problem is that a lot of those 10,000 wouldn't make good soldiers." "Wait a minute. I'm not a good soldier. Of course they don't make good soldiers." And God said, "No, I've got to use smart men to do this job. Now, I want you to send them all down to Herod's stream, and I want you to tell them to get a drink of water. And you watch, and the ones that keep their swords on and only get down on one knee and bring the water up to their mouths so they can see the enemy, you can keep those. The ones that get down on 2 knees and take off their sword, send them home. They won't make good soldiers." Oh, Gideon isn't feeling like a mighty warrior now. But he tells them that they have to go down and get a drink from Herod's stream. And then he's busy looking. And he says, "Oh, that guy's on both knees. And that one's on both knees. And that one, oh, there's one that kept his sword on. Good, you get over here." And he kept looking. And when he was finally through, Gideon only had 300 men. That's not an army. And Gideon knew it. And he's got butterflies in his stomach, and his knees are playing Home Sweet Home in a minor key, and there's perspiration on his forehead, and he's scared. And God says, Gideon, are you scared? Huh. I'm worse than scared. 300 men is not an army, God. And God said, look, Gideon, take your servant and tiptoe down to the enemy camp and just listen. And Gideon thought, well, I don't know what good that's going to do, but okay, if that's what God says to do, I'll do it. So, pitch black, it's dark. And he tiptoes down to the enemy camp, hides behind a rock with his servant, and a couple of the soldiers are sitting around a little campfire that's almost burned out, and they're asleep. And Gideon's sitting there thinking, what am I doing here? And all of a sudden, a guy comes running out of his tent, yelling at the top of his lungs, oh, I've had a terrible nightmare, an awful, awful dream. I dreamed that a great big roll of barley bread came rolling down the hill, smashed our tents, killed us all. And you know who that is, don't you? It's those Israelites. We got to get out of here. And the guys said, oh, my goodness. And Gideon's back there. Oh, my goodness, they're scared of us. Can you believe that, servant? 300 men, and they're scared of us. And the servant said, come on, let's go back. And Gideon said, yeah, get the army up. And in the middle of the night, you didn't fight usually at night. But in the middle of the night, Gideon got his army up, and he said, okay, here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to take a pitcher. Now, that was a clay pitcher, so you couldn't see in it, that you would pour water out of. But he said, we're going to stick a torch down inside the pitcher. That means the light's only going to show upwards. And Gideon's outfit is all up high on a cliff, and the Midianites are all down in the valley. And so he said, we're going to put the torch down inside the pitcher, and then we're going to take our swords, and we're going to take ram's horns. Now, ram's horns are the horns off a sheep, and they sound terrible when you blow them. They make an awful noise. He said, we're going to take the ram's horn, and I want 100 of you men to tiptoe down on that side of the Midianite camp, up high on the cliff, and 100 of you men to tiptoe down on that side, and 100 of you stay down on this side with me. And when everybody is in place, I want you to listen, because I'm going to stand up and shout, the sword of the Lord of Gideon is upon you. And I want you to break the pitchers, flash the lights, blow the ram's horns, and charge the camp. Now, that's good thinking, because usually in an army there was only one guy who's blowing a trumpet. We've got 300 blowing ram's horns, and it's going to echo back and forth across that valley and sound like there are 10 times as many men as there really are. And when the lights begin to flash as well, that will confuse the enemy. And the Midianites are down there in the camp already scared because of the guy's dream. And Gideon gets all of his men in place. And when everybody is in place, and they're ready with their pitchers and their ram's horns and their swords, Gideon jumps up and he says, the sword of the Lord of Gideon is upon you. And they all shouted it, all 300 of them. And they broke their pitchers, and the lamps flashed back and forth, and they blew those ram's horns, and it echoed across that valley. It scared the Midianites so bad they killed each other running away. And Gideon chased them all the way to the Jordan River. Now, did Gideon, because he was a mighty warrior, win that army, that battle with his army of 300 men? Of course not. God won the battle, and he won it before the battle was ever fought. He won it by giving a dream. That's psychological warfare. Giving a dream to one of the Midianites and scaring the Midianites before Gideon ever attacked. Now, God did what Gideon asked him to do. And I know he's not going to ask you to fight the Midianites, but whatever he asks you to do, you do it. If it means sit still in church and listen to the Bible school lesson, if it means sit still at school and do the work the teacher's given you to do, if it means to clean up your room because mother's told you to do it, whatever you've been told to do, you do it. Because God is working with us all the time. He says, I'm with you always, even until the end of the world.